Okay, as with every brain stream, 10 minutes is just not enough. 15 minutes is not enough. I could go on this for forever. What we spoke about in the last brain stream was I started building up this idea of interfaces are about to change because the way that we're about to unleash the power of a computer, but also the ways that we can create. The spaces are going to change. The idea of the application of the graphical user interface that really democratized computing and allowed everybody to the interface became so open and simple compared to the command line interface that it democratized computers, and it went from research and labs inside of universities into a computer on every desk, which is what Bill Gates' vision was in the future, his vision of the future, and also Steve Jobs' vision. We're moving into this new direction, into this new world that AI has unleashed upon us or helped shown us that the graphical user interface is not the only way of creating. And it actually has a lot of constraints. Now, there's a lot of different parts that I have spoken about of the graphical user interface and where I'm very interested in post-app world. I really don't think that we're going to be sandboxed into individual apps. I think apps are going to be broken up into layers. I think the whole operating system, your whole ecosystem will be broken up into layers. I think the idea of working on just one flat screen in front of you and kind of, yes, it's tiled or yes, it's windowed and there's a little bit of depth into it, but everything's condensed and kind of separate. It doesn't work well for, let's say, and I'm going to bring it back into the creative process. So layer OS, post-app world, conversational UIs. The idea of bringing in voice, bringing in conversation. So I briefly went onto this idea of like, just visualize the last time that you saw someone, because you're not going to think about when you're in front of the computers, but the last time that you saw someone working. They're staring at this, it kind of looks crazy. They're staring at this screen, silent, tapping away, typing away, clicking away, and supposedly getting work done. But it's a silent creation. Now, I don't know about you, but my imagination is not quiet. My creativity is not quiet. There are so many things going on. And when I come and sit down in front of a computer to give birth to these creations, whether they're applications, whether they're interfaces, whether they're concept videos or podcasts, or the different ways that I'm expressing my creativity or I'm building into this future, a lot of that creativity kind of gets shut off because I'm kind of constricting everything into this flow, into this application that will supposedly help me build it. Now, when you're building prototypes or when you're building things that don't exist yet, you find that the limitations of most applications is they're not going to do exactly what you need them to do. So you have to master a variety of applications that are constantly changing, constantly getting updated. And you're also kind of condensing a waterfall, which is your imagination, into this tiny faucet that is this application that's like, okay, we could do so many things. And before you could do that, you had to become a plumber to figure out how to create that tap and how to even learn how to interact or how to work with that faucet. So you could even contain some of this torrential downpour of water to be able to shape it and guide it. But you know that what's coming out of that tap is nothing compared to what is out there or what you could do. And this is what's exciting about AI for me personally. It's for, not only is that it's interesting because the same beast that is helping to, that I believe will help open up completely and completely change the way that everybody in the world is going to be able to build and inject, create, get their work done, is the same way that it's going to help showcase this creativity that helps build this interface, which is one of the, it's come to a point where I've got no words. So let's kind of back this up over here. So there are multiple ways that the interface is about to radically change. And almost there's so many parts of it that One of the projects that I'm getting to in my spare time is trying to visualize and showcase that. There are many companies that are doing multiple ways of showcasing the future of the computer. And for most of you who know me personally, you know that augmented reality is kind of the massive vehicle. You're also hearing AI here and there a little bit. I want to focus this. I want to focus this thought over here because it's going into a variety of different ways. What is so exciting to me is that people are building finally the tools to create and generate things at speeds that before were not possible for one person, 10 people, even 100 people. The amount of that to me just alone is incredibly exciting. The way that we change, the way that I change, when I think of the possibilities, I look at a computer, I look at a smartphone, a device, and just be like, I just feel like I'm incredibly limited, and sometimes I get overwhelmed with the idea that the tools of the future are going to be able to, what I'm doing now will be able to be done in a second. And that's why all these times that I get started on a project or things like that, and I start looking at all the ways to create it, it's almost like there are too many things to try change, which is why I come back to the operating system and why it's incredibly exciting of moving away from this windowed graphical user interface, 2D way of working. And it's like thinking that conversational way of controlling something or creating something, that show and tell, having a being that I can communicate with, and through a conversation I can create what before would take me months or years, is incredibly exciting. And that's going to happen to everybody. I'm just trying to think of like an example that I haven't used before to try bring on, like, had a conversation yesterday and we were like hashing this out and talking. He asked me, what about accountants? What about regular people? And it's like, yes, I want to answer that, but let's first focus on one example. Let's focus on creatives, and then we can jump into and speak to regular people. But the way I really see it is actually very different than what's that movie? Minority Report. Where if you look, he's using very interesting gestures, and gestures are a huge part of how we are going to interact in the future. But the way I see gestures is that they're going to be unconscious gestures. This idea of like Minority Report, of like it looks super cool, but like, first of all, macro gestures, incredibly bad way to interact and interface with a computer. Your hands will get very tired very fast. Gestures, I think, should be subconscious. Kind of like the way my hands are working nowadays. When you speak to people, you're conveying information like I am now that I'm not consciously thinking about. And this is where I think gestures are going to help. Controlling lights, controlling different things. It'll be as a result of my entire body, not just my hands, but all the five senses, the way I interact. But that conversation with this being that understands, that dictates, but also that I can show and tell and explain, I can start off with my goal, right? Right now, when you're creative, you see a whole world, right? And you're trying to force that into a tiny little pinhole to start creating. And then you open up an application that says, okay, I can do this. What part of this world do you want me to tackle? With AI, with generative AI, with LLMs, with this being that will be able to be multimodal and conversational, you will be able to start with the goal and say, this is what I want to achieve. How do we start over here? And suddenly you'll have videos pop up, images pop up. You'll be able to point at things and say, hey, I like the way you're going, but this is not the correct things. You'll be able to highlight parts of the images that you want to change. That image you'll be able to turn into not just a video, but also a 3D model, into geometry, not just pixels. You will be able to explain worlds, change worlds, manipulate worlds based on conversations, but also playing with these visuals, playing with the geometry, moving things around. The creation of what you want to do is not just for creative, it's going to be for everybody. It's going to embody all your five senses, but the show and the tell, that conversational, that back and forth is going to be a huge part on how that interface is going to work. I'll see you guys in the future.